Welcome to For Sure Pod. Today's guest is Olympic diver and Stanford grad Kassidy Cook. She's competed on the world's biggest stage, battled injuries, and always come out stronger. She also has a massive family, a deep love for golf carts, and just got engaged. We did it. Before we dive in, literally, quick shout out to lifespark.bio because your sperm deserves better. So, quick question to start. I ask every person at the start of this pod, what were you like as a child?
Oh my gosh, I was a wild child, always getting in trouble, always talking too much. Big surprise there. But yeah, I think I was like a baby Tarzan, like climbing trees, always getting into some sort of trouble. Grew up in South Florida, so I don't think I was wearing a ton of clothes in our backyard either. So much like Tarzan.
Yeah, no, you definitely give Tarzan vibes. I feel like
Thank
that,
you.
but that probably helped you flip and dive.
Yeah, that's what every girl wants to hear.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Wait, so you grew up in South Florida, and then when did you move to Houston?
I moved to Texas when I was 10. So what was that? Fifth grade.
What was that like? It was probably cool because they're like, oh my gosh, there's this new girl in town, this new athletic girl
Yeah.
from Florida. You were probably so cool.
Yeah, no, it's funny to think about how things go when you're younger. But yeah, that's exactly how it was. Like, oh, the new girl from Florida, have you met her yet? And then, of course, like as I got to know everybody, I became like the crazy girl that was really good at PE and was a diver and wanted to go to the Olympics. So those were kind of like my trademarks growing up.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so you're one of seven siblings, and everyone's name starts with your six siblings.
Yeah. And
Gosh,
we
we'll
all start
cut
with
that.
K. Yeah.
We'll cut that. You're one of six siblings. I'm not good at counting. Like once I get over five, it's hard. You know what I
I
mean?
know it's really hard.
But
They
everyone
don't
starts.
give you refresher courses as you get older in basic counting. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But do I remember this correctly that everyone starts with a K?
Yeah. Yeah. We didn't copy the Kardashians, okay? They might have copied us.
I don't know. Wow. So six K names. Wait, can you fly through them then? I know it's obviously you and Kendall.
Hmm. So it's Kevin,
What is-
Kira, Kelsey, Kylie, Cassidy, Kendall.
Wow. Okay. That's amazing. And how many kids do you want? And will they also all start with the same letter?
I don't think I'll do that. I don't think my parents did that on purpose, at least for the first four. But growing up, I always thought I wanted to have like a big family, like my parents. Like I was like, I want to have five kids. But now that I'm older and realize that I actually have to give birth to each individual one and how much they cost, I think I would stick at like a max of like three, maybe four, but three would be a good number. I feel like
Yeah.
it's
I
just
feel
so
like
expensive these days. I don't know how like our parents afforded it.
they're so expensive. Yeah, I don't know. And this is a big reason why the birth rates in the US are going down. Fun fact, the birth rate is 1.5 and it needs to
Mhm.
be at 2.1 for us to maintain our population in the US.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, we're
Well, I
declining.
have 10 nieces and nephews now, so the Cook family's doing their part in maintaining the population.
Wow. You guys probably have great Christmas photos. I
But
feel like
yeah,
I've
when we
seen it.
can all get together, you know how my mom is making us wear all those crazy outfits. The famous Laura Welsh Cook.
Yeah, yeah. No, so tell me about your mom. I feel like and your dad, your parents are awesome. And I feel like in my life, they were super important for me developing as an athlete. Was that the same for you?
For sure, yeah. Like I wouldn't be where I am today or have any of the accolades that I do without like the support from my parents. Um, they were definitely hard asses growing up on me, on all of us, just wanting us to achieve and do the most. Like my mom was in the first class of women to go to West Point, so you can imagine how
Yeah.
intense, which is hard to imagine her personality, but her intensity definitely matches the first class of women at West Point. And then my dad played football and did track and field at Columbia, so they definitely had high expectations and wanted to set us up for success. But, you know, it didn't just take sacrifice and dedication from me to get to the Olympics and to get my Olympic silver medal. It obviously took a lot of sacrifice and dedication from my family as well. And I'm so grateful that I have such amazing and supportive parents that I do have.
Yeah. No, your parents are incredible. And if I remember correctly, did Kendall also dive competitively? Was diving in the fam?
We all dove when we were younger, growing up in
Yeah.
Florida, but me and my oldest sister, Kara, were the ones that dove like in college. And then obviously me beyond. But all my other sisters didn't get the short gene; they got the tall gene. So I'm like 5'4", My little sister's 6 foot. There's no way she's diving, flipping off a board.
Yeah. Wow. Is that a center of gravity thing? Like, are most divers shorter?
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar to gymnastics where like just being compact is just easier to spin through the air and have body awareness. Like much like how if you're tall, you're going to be better at like basketball or volleyball. Being smaller definitely plays in your favor.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And what's your best childhood memory that doesn't have to do with diving?
Oh gosh, that's a tough question. I mean, obviously diving was a huge part of my childhood, but I think just like growing up and being like in warm states and always being outside and playing. I remember this one time I was climbing like on my neighbor's fence and I was doing some monkey shit, like, like the Tarzan little Kassidy was doing. And I climbed up on the roof and they were so amazed, but then I fell off of it. So that's what it was, a really fun memory, but also a pretty painful one as well. But I don't know. I had such a fun childhood when you grow up in such a big family with so many siblings that are so close in age. Like me and Kendall are only 17 months apart. My older sister's only 16 months apart. So we all grew up like as a team. There was a big sense of camaraderie. And it just made being a kid and that much more fun just to have built-in best friends.
Totally. Totally. And so how old were you when you started diving?
I was 3. Obviously, I don't remember that far back, but there are home videos, so I can prove it.
Okay.
But at the time, my older siblings were diving, so I was kind of just always on the pool deck at their competitions. And as soon as I was able to swim, I guess my mom put me in diving.
Yeah. But obviously, like I've played beard eye with you. You're obviously a phenomenal athlete. How did you stick to diving? Because I feel like pretty much, I would love your thoughts on this. I feel like pretty much every Olympic level person, with exceptions, could probably be a good athlete at something else too.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And you definitely fit in that category.
Thank you. I would like to say I'm pretty athletic.
Yeah.
I grew up doing more than just diving. I did softball, soccer, dancing, and diving. And I actually liked soccer. I was a pretty high level soccer player up until like 8th grade. And I actually liked soccer more than diving. My parents always saw it as like there are a million soccer players, good soccer players in this country, and there's not that many divers, and you're good, really good at both sports, but we think you can go further with diving. So it was kind of that's was what made the decision for me, was that like you can go to the Olympics in diving. Soccer is a toss up. Like there are so many soccer players in this country and honestly in the world that, if you want to have Olympic aspirations, if you really want to make that reality, diving is your best route to get there. So that's kind of how I chose diving. But I don't know why I excelled in it when I was younger. When I was 6 years old, I was competing in the 13 and under. So like the 13 and under age group. But I think I credit it to being just kind of like a daredevil. Diving is one of those sports that's really scary, acrobatically, like you can get a lot of mental blocks and you have to be able to kind of get over the fear of heights and get over the fear of, hitting the board or messing up. And I never really had that fear growing up. I was, sort of fearless, which was a good thing and a bad thing because that's how I would get myself into trouble. But I think that's kind of like what made me good as a diver when I was when most people were afraid to even swim at my age. I was just jumping off the board doing flips.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. And so you, based on my memory, so you barely missed the 2012 Olympic team by 0.42 points.
Mm-hmm.
And you compete in 2016 in Rio. You don't compete in 2020, and then you come back in 2024 and win silver. Can you just, that's a long time. Can you just walk me through that like 12-year period?
For sure. Yeah, man. The road was never linear. Back in 2012, I was a junior in high school and really young for my event to be as good as I was. And, going into those Olympic trials, I was within the top 4 individual divers and then the top 2 synchro teams. And for the Olympics, they take 2 individual divers and 1 synchro team. So it was definitely going in there knowing that like I had a really good shot of making it, but there were also very good teams and individuals that could also make it. And at the time I was diving synchronized with a girl who was 10 years older than me. So most of the people that I was competing against were late 20s, mid 20s, and had just turned 17. And I dove really well at that meet. We dove really well. But like I said, there was a ton of depth in the field and, heartbreaking results of missing the Olympics by less than half a point as a teenager, which in diving, half a point like equates to like a drop of water, like a pointed toe. Like it's such a small margin of points. Like we basically tied. And then I ended up also so I got second in the single event and then third in the individual event. So missed both of the Olympic quota spots by one place, which as a teenager, I thought my life was over. I thought the world, everything that I ever trained for was for nothing. And, it was absolutely heartbreaking. And that was really, really tough experience to go through as a teenager, when you're not as mature emotionally, when you kind of like dedicate your whole life to something and that dream doesn't come to fruition. It was really, really painful. And then as the cherry on top, 2 weeks after that, I tore my labrum like 360 degrees. So like pretty badly, just training. And so I remember I was watching the Olympic opening ceremonies from my hospital bed after my reconstructive shoulder surgery. And that's just a memory that I have that's so vivid and also so painful. But I think, that experience kind of shaped me as an athlete and as a person, in the years to come. So I really did struggle, I guess, from like that summer after that until probably 2015, just like with my identity and getting back into diving. I had to get another surgery on that same shoulder less than a year after that injury. So I had just committed to Stanford. At the time, the doctors were saying they didn't know if I was going to be able to like dive at the same level or at all, which of course was hard to hear. And also I feel like doctors always say that just so if that does happen, they have their backs covered. But anyway, so going into my senior year of high school and throughout it, I was like, I just committed to like Stanford for a full ride scholarship for diving. I really messed up my shoulder. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, what if I can't ever get back to that level? And I kind of struggled with those thoughts for a while, especially going into college, my freshman year. I think I struggled a little bit with controlling myself, controlling my emotions, and kind of used other outlets to numb the pain or just kind of forget about diving. At that point, I kind of had a not a love-hate relationship. I just hated it because for that year, all I had experienced was heartbreak. And it was, it was a huge part of me. My parents always raised me to be, a person and not Kassidy the diver, but also Kassidy the person. Like, we don't love you because you are great at diving. We love you because you're an amazing person. It was still hard to let that go. I didn't let diving become my whole identity. I went to public school, went to all the dances, prom, homecoming. My parents really wanted to make sure I had balance, but it was at the end of the day, it still was a really big part of my identity. So to have all of that happen, all that trauma happen in a short period of time at a young age was really, really hard to deal with. But once I, finished my sophomore year up at Stanford, I started to get my groove back a little bit, started working with a physical therapist there, Scott Anderson, remember him? He really started me on this program that completely changed my shoulder because my shoulder never felt the same from that incident in 2012. For 3 years, like my shoulder would sublux and dislocate and it would not feel like functional. And I could never really get through a whole season of diving without, having to get some sort of PRP or cortisone shot or, some sort of pain reliever. But once I started working with Scott late my sophomore year, like my shoulder really started to take a turn and was feeling great. And I got back my Olympic list. I hadn't really competed at that level since the 2012 Olympics. And so going into that summer, I was like, I have a real shot. Like, it's not dead. And I think if I want to make this dream a reality, I have to give it my all. And so that's kind of what drove me to take a gap year from Stanford my junior year, that 2015, 2016 school year, so that I could just focus on diving. I moved back home so that I could work with my coach that had known me and coached me my entire life. When you go to college, you're stepping into somebody else's team and with a coach that, knows you, but doesn't know your history and doesn't know the person that you were growing up and what works best for you. So I really wanted to give myself the best shot to make the Olympic team. And I knew that going back home and being able to focus on solely diving was the best way to do that because in my head, I was already 3 years behind. I hadn't really been able to push the pedal or train as hard as some of my competitors due to injury and some other obstacles. So thankfully that worked out in my favor. 2016 came around. I qualified for my first Olympic Games, which was just a surreal moment. Just after all the injuries and heartbreak and, hurdles I had to jump to get there, I just felt pure joy. And I had just turned 21. So it was like a really, really cool experience to have. Again, really young, but went to Rio. Had the time of my life. I met so many cool people, so many famous athletes. I didn't compete to the best of my ability. And I think, looking back and reflecting on that, I don't think I had the maturity that I do now as an athlete. I was a little starstruck when I got there. I tried to do everything. And, I didn't really know what to expect when going to the Olympics, which is to expect the unexpected because it is such a grand event of like huge size that it's hard to get all the logistics correct. So there were instances where, we were stuck in traffic and I missed my warm up or I couldn't get home, which are common things that you'll see at these big events. But as an athlete, most of the events I've gone to have just been diving or aquatic sports. So swimming, diving, water polo, synchronized swimming. And so they're really easy to manage and super organized. So the Olympics having all those sports and all the countries, all these athletes from everywhere, I think it was a little bit overwhelming for me. So I didn't feel like I competed to the best of my ability, but I had such a great experience. I will always look back at my time in Rio and be super proud of how I competed, but also very fond of the memories and friends that I made. After that, I returned to college, finished my degree at Stanford, struggled with, some more injuries. After the 2016 Olympics, I had another shoulder surgery. I had some bulging and herniated discs in my back, in my senior year. So at that point, I kind of was like, I don't know if I want to keep going because my goal was to always make the Olympics, but the main goal was to medal, and I didn't do that. And so I felt like I had more in the tank, at least mentally, but I felt like my body was maybe physically telling me hey, it's time to step away. At that point, I think I had 5 surgeries. And so I kind of took a break. I won't say I officially retired because I did end up coming back, but after I graduated from Stanford, I didn't dive. I started working in Silicon Valley, in 2018 and, was leading a pretty good life. I mean, I think that sometimes athletes can struggle when they transition from doing a sport into real life. That we didn't have time for internships and side jobs because when we weren't in school, we were training or we had summer league. And for me, I had national team, then Olympic level. So I never had time to add a job to my resume, get an internship. It was, I had to pick one at the time. And I knew that diving is such a short period in my life that if I don't take advantage of that, then I will regret it. So as I started working, I was just watching some competitions here and there on the internet, keeping up with the diving world. And 2019 came around and I was like, I think I could beat some of these girls still. I was like, I feel like if I had, a healthy body and 3 months of training, I could come back and win the nationals. So I started playing around with that thought in the middle of 2019. And once I kind of thought about it enough and planned out the future, I decided to, quit my job and start diving again. And so as an Olympic diver, as a smaller sport, and especially in women's sports, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to support myself if I decided to keep diving and quit my job. So that led me to move back to Texas from San Francisco, kind of leave my life behind there and solely dedicate to diving again. And like I said, I had 3 months of training. I came back in December of that year and I won the nationals in individual and in synchro with Sarah Bacon, who I just started doing synchro with. And things were looking, I was like, man, I'm pretty badass. I put my mind to this. I said I only needed 3 months and I came back and I did it. The rest of, early 2020 to some international competitions, got gold at all of them. And then that brought us to about March 2020. We all know what happened at that point. COVID kind of came around and stopped the world, stopped all sporting events, stopped every event, any social interaction, any big, large gathering of people, which led to that kind of delay for the 2020 Olympics, which at the time I was like, okay, I'm going to put a positive spin on this. I've only been back training for 6 months, and now this gives me an extra year. Look what I've been able to accomplish in 6 months. Imagine what I can do with an extra year. So I had a really positive attitude during that time. And again, was kicking butt, once things started to open back up. But come March 2021, a couple months before our trials, I started to have some pain again. And guess where? My shoulders.
It's always
So
the shoulders, Cass.
it's always the
Always.
shoulders. And that kind of, I try to fight through it, push through it, could barely lift my arms above my head by the time the Olympic trials came around. And so I had to pull out of one of my events and barely made it through the other. So I was unable to compete at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics, which was a big bummer. Again, like I felt like mentally I was as sharp and as strong as ever, but my body was resisting me again. It was not doing what I wanted it to do, which is super frustrating because I was ranked number one going into that year. Things don't always play out in your favor. And again, after that period, I was like, I'm going to take a break. Body needs a break. We'll reevaluate. Got a job, started working again. But I knew that I knew that there was potential that I would come back because I felt like I had unfinished business. Like I knew that I was good enough to be on that podium and that if I could just keep my body in check, I would get there. And so after, 2 years off and giving my body some rest, I returned to diving and things went really well. I decided to just focus on synchronized diving this time around and started doing both events because just, my body, I didn't know if I could handle both. And I'd rather excel in one of them than try to do both and end up where I was in 2021. So I focused in with my synchro partner, Sarah Bacon. We were kicking butt. I moved to Minnesota for a year, the year before the Olympics, just so that we could train together every day and really give ourselves the best shot at not only making the Olympics, but getting on that podium. And thankfully that played out in our favor. We kicked butt at the U.S. Olympic trials, won by like 35 points. And then that brought us to Paris this last summer. And it was absolutely amazing. We were the first Olympic medal of the summer games for Team USA, which was an incredible feeling. Like I knew I was first day of competition for finals and then I was done. So I competed, secured the first medal for Team USA. And then I just got to hang out and go to the other events and meet so many awesome people for the rest of the Olympics. So really, I think I had the ideal Olympic experience, day one done. And then I had like 2.5 weeks to just do whatever I want, cheer on my teammates, cheer on, the rest of Team USA. And it was honestly like, still feels like a fairy tale, like such a dream come true. And I'm so glad that I have such a strong sense of perseverance and confidence and such a supportive and amazing village of people behind me, supporting me and, enabling me to go for my dreams because I finally achieved it. And it just feels like, it's hard to describe, but it's the best feeling in the world when your dreams come to fruition. And I think that it's so much sweeter at this age because of everything that I've been through along the way. Obviously, no path for an athlete is going to be linear, but I felt like mine was extra tumultuous. And so to prove to myself that I can push through so much, really just like made me a stronger person, a more confident person. And, I look back and I wish that I didn't have to go through those things, but I'm really thankful that I did because I don't know if I would have this same result or this same sense of gumption that I do now if I hadn't been tested so much.
100%. And Cass, to your point, you didn't win that silver medal in Paris in 2024. You won it when you were 3 years old diving. You won it when you spent a year in Minnesota, right? You won it when you moved from San Francisco to Houston. And it definitely takes a village. And how does winning an Olympic medal change your life?
I think it doesn't change your life so much as people think, but I think you have to take advantage of the opportunities that you get. And since winning that medal, I've had so many people reach out, so many companies, so many individuals, and so many opportunities have come my way. And I've been the yes man. Like I've been doing everything because I'm like, people aren't going to remember my silver medal in like probably a couple more months. Like once that Winter Olympics start taking
Ride the
off.
wave. Yeah.
That's the joy of being an Olympian, I suppose, that like you're only relevant every 4 years for a short period of time. So I've been the yes man. I've been saying yes to every event, yes to every opportunity, because I truly enjoy just engaging with people and, going on these really cool experiences that I know that I might that other people might not have the opportunity to get. And so I've been doing everything possible. And all of these doors that have opened for me have, introduced me to other passions that I have in life and things that I could see myself doing for my future career. And I've just met so many amazing people. And I think, obviously, I don't think any of that would have been possible without, getting that silver medal.
Yeah. And so the top of any sport, right? I feel like I can relate to it in kicking, where there are 32 kickers in the NFL, but at any given time, there's really around 50 who are at that level. Is that the same with diving? Is there a top, say 50? And then how much of a difference is there really in that top 50? Is the best diver in the world leaps and bounds better than like the second best diver, or is it pretty close? Because I imagine when I'm watching diving, the scoring is pretty close. So I assume, okay, it's kind of just who is on that day and maybe who performs the best.
Yeah, exactly. I would say the top, there's probably like 12 divers like within each event, sometimes more, that could medal, that have potential to medal. And, only obviously 3 people or 3 teams get that accolade. So it really could be anybody's games. And diving is really one of those sports where anything can happen. You can have a good day, you can have a bad day, but there's so many variables like swimming, track, like it's fractions of a point. Like they might not win, but like their margin of error is going to be so much smaller than it is diving. I mean, diving, you can fall off the board. You can completely fail a dive. You can slip out. Like there's so many, like it's like gymnastics where there's so many things that can go wrong within a dive that you could have 100-point difference between one day and then the next day. The best sport that I can compare to is golf, where like a different golfer can win a US Open or one of the Pro-Ams, at like every year or every other competition, because it's so specific, and a stroke in a dive are very similar. Like you mess up one hole, that could carry over into the rest of your performance. And so it really is anybody's game, except the Chinese there's a sure bet that there's going to be a Chinese on the podium in diving in any event. And we don't really know why. I think it's like a very popular sport over there. So they place a lot of emphasis on it, and they have, aptitude tests and schools where they put them into like diving schools when they're very little and take them away from their families, and they just train. But yeah, besides that, I think the rest of the world is super close in talent and level. It just depends on who is honestly mentally there that day. Because I think diving is one of those sports where if you could turn off your brain, you would be a better diver, because muscle memory would take over. It would be easy to, you've done these dives and these actions for years and years and years, hundreds and thousands of times. But up here is where it gets really difficult, because you can psych yourself out. You let the pressure get in. So it's one of those sports where you could really, really would benefit if you could shut off your brain. But yeah, that also plays into my favor, because I've always been a mentally strong competitor. And so I can handle the pressure. I actually like it. Like if I don't have the butterflies, if I don't have the nerves, I feel a little flat, and I know I'm not going to do my best. Like when I have that feeling, I know that I'm going to turn it on. And some people just don't like that feeling in diving, and that can show in their performance. So they could be the best practice diver, they could win the Olympics in the practice, but then when the competition comes around, the nerves get to them. So really it's just about honestly staying on top of it mentally when it comes to competition.
Totally. And you and I have been great friends since Stanford, part of which I'll attribute to you're obviously a phenomenal athlete, but I love you because you don't take yourself too seriously, which I can definitely relate to. And I see you post videos sometimes of you jumping and slipping and falling on the board. What's the worst thing that's happened live in a competition?
Oh my gosh. I have this one video. I've definitely posted it in one of my blooper reels from college, where I was doing a hurdle and I almost slipped off the side, but I caught myself. So then I started spinning in the air. And I think that I was so shocked that I didn't fall off the board that I got completely lost. Like, so when you're diving, you spot the water, and that's when you know when to come out of your dive. So I was doing 3.5 flips, but I think I was so shocked that I caught myself and didn't slip off the board that I wasn't paying attention. And I was like, I have no clue where I am. So I just came out of the dive, and I remember I came out and I saw the ceiling instead of the water, and I was like, oh shit. And completely belly flopped. And this was in a competition in college. And that video is pretty hilarious. I've also had a knee buckle in a competition. So when you're jumping on the board, just my knee gave out and I slipped and kind of ate it and scraped, my butt cheek all the way down the bottom of my hamstring. So those two happen. And I think that diving bloopers is probably some of the funniest sport bloopers you can find because you're on this small movable object suspended up in the air and you're soaking wet. Nobody's going to get away with not slipping at least like 5 times in your career.
100%. And what's diving culture like? Do you ever talk shit to the other divers between dives?
No, I think like diving's such a small world, so it's kind of like a family. So I get along really well with the international divers and my competitors. Obviously, like when it comes down to it, cutthroat, like I'm going to beat your ass. But like, I would say there's really good sense of camaraderie in diving. And, some of my greatest friends are from different countries within the sport and people that I compete against.
Why are Chinese divers so good?
That's the question that we've been asking ourselves for decades.
Yeah.
I think they just place a lot of emphasis on diving in their country. Much like I feel like if we allocated more resources to like a sport, like one of the smaller sports here, obviously we excel at the sports where we put all the money in, where the money is being made. And we dominate in those sports, but we don't do that so much for diving. And they do that in China. And so I think they just have like great resources. The Chinese divers are able to dive longer in their life because they can financially support themselves. So that's been a big struggle for, people who want to dive or do one of those smaller sports past college. And that's kind of changed with NIL, which is great. But, you're not making a livable income being an Olympic athlete. Like we have no guaranteed salary. Most of our money's prize money. So you win them at competitions. And if you're injured, if you're sick, you might be missing out on, a fourth of your expected yearly income or money that you think that you're going to get because you can't compete. So I think having the security blanket in China of like, I'm making money regardless. So I can keep diving and I don't have to focus. I don't have to worry about all these other things in life. And then they just have great facilities and great coaches. They just put a lot of money in there. And also they're just built. They have the correct build for it. They're tiny. They're small. They're super symmetrical, flexible. But I think, me and Sarah, we're not too far behind the Chinese this round. Like I think the rest of the world is catching up. And so, I would expect to see some upsets in 2028.
100%. And speaking of Sarah, Kassidy Cook, Sarah Bacon, Cook and Bacon, is there a better Olympic duo nickname?
In my opinion, no. Who doesn't love bacon? Breakfast food.
I love bacon.
That was like really fun for us because there was a lot of my sponsorship opportunities came solely because of our last names. So like shout out to my dad, shout out to Sarah's dad. And we got a sponsorship with Hormel Bacon, Black Label Bacon. We were sponsored by the Minnesota Pork Union. So like the pork farmers of Minnesota. First watched the breakfast chain, like all because of our last names. Like it was awesome to be able to have all of these opportunities and kind of like use that fun little nickname to get to be able to bag some money because that doesn't happen often.
100%. I love the video you posted where you had like an egg floaty and she had a bacon floaty. You guys were walking around. I just thought that was so funny.
Yeah, we really played into it because we were like, why not? People seem to like it. And our last names are pretty dope, so.
They're epic. And Cass, you are jacked. You've always been jacked. What's your secret?
I think genetics obviously has a big factor in it, but weightlifting. Yeah, I love to lift weights. It's the best way to build muscle. And, I think just years of hard work and fine tuning and kind of seeing what works and what doesn't work for me, really just worked out for me. And then now I can just kind of relax, on that stuff and have faith that I know what I'm doing with my body and what my body needs. So like I definitely struggled with body image and some eating stuff like in college, just like with all the changes going on and in a sport where you're literally being judged on a scale of 1 to 10, a bathing suit, like it can get to you. But I think, once I finally sought help and realized that I did have like a binge eating problem. I did have body image. The way I was looking at myself, the way I was looking at food wasn't healthy. Once I got that help, I think that like kind of turned the table for me. And now those thoughts don't even come up for me. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of female athletes, especially when they go into college, because like I grew up, like I was ripped in high school, like naturally, I lived at home. But then when I got to college, I was like, oh my God, there's all this food here, whatever I want. Like,
Yeah. Get some natty light at SAE.
Sorry to the SAE kitchen for all of the food that I've eaten in my 4 years in college. But yeah, so I think that, I think it's getting talked about more nowadays, which is awesome, because I would hate to see young women struggle the way that I did, and kind of go through that self-loathing process. So I think, it's important to be transparent about those things and talk about it and get help if you need it, because that really made all the difference in the world in my in late 20s.
That's awesome. And I'm glad that you figured that out and went right through it, right? That's amazing. And you've always been in great shape.
Thanks.
And I'm realizing now that maybe jacked isn't the best way to say it, but I think you've just always been very fit. It's a compliment. I mean it in the best way.
I mean, I took it in the best way. Jacked? Are you kidding me? That's what I'm going for, baby.
I want to be jacked too. But at Stanford, you were notorious for having a golf cart, which they gave to injured athletes. Will you have a golf cart at your future home?
Absolutely. I can't not. It's kind of my thing now.
You have to.
My parents have a golf cart now, and they won't let me drive it. But
is that because they think you might crash it or flip it like at Stanford?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
I was a bit wild child. I was a wild child at Stanford. But it's a growing process. And I'm still that crazy girl, but I've reined it in a little.
Yeah. No, you were very fun and you're very kind. I know you and I, we both like to have fun, but you're a very kind person. And I think that's what's most important. More important topic, Game of Thrones. So we've been in a Game of Thrones group chat for at least 10 years now.
Yeah.
Talk to me. What are your thoughts on the franchise, where we are now? How do you feel?
Gosh, I just rewatched that show this past summer.
All season.
Yeah. I watched the Red Wedding at the Olympian, when I was in Paris. I was on season 3 at that time.
Did it pump you up? You're like, let's go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then I watched Battle of the Bastards the night before I competed, because that's just like my go-to episode to get fired up.
That's epic.
I mean, rewatching that show, I was like, this is just peak TV. Like, it will never get that good again. Obviously last season, I erased that from my mind, but rewatching the early seasons up until season 6, I was like, this is just I tear up just watching it, because it's so freaking good. And I'm such a big fantasy nerd, that I was like, this is my life. I love this show so much. But that was peak television, and I'm happy that they're doing House of the Dragon. Obviously they have a lot to live up to, but through those first 2 seasons, I think they're doing a pretty good job. But yeah, I wish I could go back and watch Game of Thrones for the first time. It's just so good. I could literally watch it every single day and never get sick of it.
Some of my best memories at Stanford, Cass, was when we would go and watch it on Sundays when they came out.
Oh yeah.
It was epic.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. We would have a little watch parties with all the boys plus me.
Yeah, the boys. Shout out the boys. And so you're engaged.
Yes.
Cass, congratulations. How did you meet your fiance?
My best friend Marissa Ciccone.
Love her. Shout out Marissa Ciccone. We love you so much.
It's her cousin. Yeah, so
no way.
Yeah, I've been visiting Marissa down at the Jersey Shore, Seattle City, since 2017, and I met him in September of 2020 when I was visiting her for, I think that's Labor Day. Yeah, Labor Day weekend. And I visited Marissa a couple times throughout 2021 and 2020, and clicked with him. And then I moved to Philly to live with Marissa because I wanted to switch it up. She's my best friend. We have so much fun together. So I moved and lived with her 2021 in Philly. And that's when me and my current fiance started kind of dating. And yeah, I owe it all to my best friend, but it's a small world. So now me and Marissa are family, which is going to be pretty cool.
I can't think of anything better than me marrying your best friend's cousin. I definitely hope that I marry someday a friend of a friend, right?
Yeah.
Which I know is not a friend of a friend, but saying someone in our ecosystem. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it's so when people ask how we've met, when I tell them, they're like, that's crazy. I feel like everybody, you met him the old fashioned way. Like everybody always meets on apps now. And I was like, yeah, we really did, just like through a good friend. And it just seemed to work. So we got engaged this past November.
Epic. How's the wedding planning?
Bro, that's not my thing. You know, I'm not like super girly girl.
No, I know.
But I feel like it's as stressful as you make it. I'm pretty low maintenance girl. And so I'm not going to get hung up on like the tiny, like I really don't freaking care what the napkins and the cutlery look like. Like I just want to have a good time with my friends, have good DJ,
Yeah.
you know, get all the people I love together in one place and just celebrate. So I haven't been stressing about the planning. Maybe I should, but I do well when there's a sense of urgency and there's a fire lit under my butt, which like
Yeah.
planning a wedding is like at least a year long, year and a half long process. And so I'm like, why do I need to like pick out a dress 1 year ahead of time? But we're getting there. I have my sisters and my mom to help me out. But yeah, it's not really my thing. I mean, I love weddings. Don't get me wrong. I tear up a wedding dance floor, which I'm excited. Like one of the requirements for my dress is that I have to be able to do the splits and I have to be able to do the backflip. Like non-negotiables. I'm busting out a backflip and then straight into the splits at my wedding. Like that's a non-negotiable. Dress has got to be able to withstand that. But yeah, so like the planning process, I'm sure I'll get into it and have more fun with it, but I am excited because I do love weddings and obviously you'll be invited. So it'll be a great little reunion.
I'm so excited. My one unsolicited wedding thought, I've never not had fun at a wedding that has espresso martinis.
All right. Noted. I do love me an espresso martini. So
They get the people going, and you
have the caffeine and the alcohol, so it's like
exactly.
So
when at the wedding, right? You have the ceremony, then you have the little happy hour where the bride and groom take pictures, then you have dinner, and then you have all this food. Since sometimes people's energy goes down a little bit, but then post-din espresso teeny skyrocket, best night of our lives.
That's such a good idea. So like we're gonna save it for post-dinner. There we go.
I think right after dinner, everyone's digesting, get it going and straight to the dance floor. Despacito.
Yes, I love it. And then you know me, I'm a messy gal. I'll probably have coffee stains all over my white dress while I do my backflip and the splits. But
Perfect.
I wouldn't have it any other way. It's very me.
Exactly.
I don't want to be somebody that I'm not on my wedding day. I don't need to be that picture perfect princess bride. Like I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna be that messy girl that, might look a little ridiculous, but she's having a good time.
I love it. And will you and your fiance do a synchronized dive at your wedding?
He does not know how to dive, but I mean, we could try. I'm sure I could teach him the basics. It is going to be on the water, so that is an option.
So the night before you won silver at the Paris Olympics, you watched Battle of the Bastards. Mm-hmm. What's your go-to pump-up song before a competition?
It kind of changes based on like what I'm listening to or what I'm liking at that time. But at this Olympics, I listened to one song on repeat the entire time just because like I was super into that song at the time. It was Like That by Future and Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah.
Specifically Kendrick's like rap when he comes in there. This is like where the beef with him and Drake kind of started. So I was just like bump into it and listened to like there was not that much time in between my rounds. So I like would just go back, put that song on and it was working. And yeah, that was my anthem at the Olympics.
That's epic. That's epic. Do you have any superstitions before diving?
Yeah, a few. I try to like not have too many because like I said, like if anything gets thrown off in a sport where it's super mental, like I don't want anything that can get in my head. But I always like to wear like my fuzzy socks in between my dives. I get super cold. So like fuzzy socks. I have like pretty much the same breakfast before I compete, which was like oatmeal, protein powder, berries, Greek yogurt, coffee. And then I like to have my nails done. You got to have the dogs out and diving, barefoot up on that board. And
gotta have the dogs out.
And yeah, so I had to have my nails done. I always get them red, white, and blue. Yeah, so those are like my little superstitions. I've shortened that list because those are things that I can control. So as long as I can control the things that I'm superstitious about, then I'm good. Because if I have superstitions with things that I can't control, like I have to sit in this certain spot and, that's not going to happen at the Olympics. And I don't want anything to be able to throw me off my game.
And so you were in the Olympic Village in Rio. and in Paris. What was your favorite memory in the Olympic Village?
I think just all of the amazing people that you meet. I mean, you have the world's best athletes in every single sport, all living within a like 2 mile radius of one another. So all different shapes and sizes. And you walk into the dining hall, you're going to see an Olympic weightlifter that's 350 pounds. And then you're going to see a gymnast that's literally 4'9" and 80 pounds. Like you're going to see so many different types of people who are so talented and gifted and the best at what they do. And it's really like, I tried not to take advantage of that, like every single day, just walking around and taking it all in because it is such a special experience. And I met so many cool people. Also, the chocolate muffins they did live up to the hype. Those things were fire. I need to get that recipe.
I love that. And if you weren't a diver, what sport would you want to compete in the Olympics?
I always think soccer. I loved playing soccer growing up, but personality wise, I think I would like to do some sort of like acrobat. No, what's the word I'm looking for? Like sparring. What's combat sport? I feel like I would be
martial
good at
arts.
that. Like I have a lot of energy. You know, I can have a temper, and I feel like that's a really good sport to. I don't know. I feel like I would really like it.
Yeah,
But
I
I
love
have
that.
absolutely zero experience in combat sport. Only ever really punched a wall. Never a person. But no, I think that's a sport that I would enjoy if, given the right training.
100%. Okay, Cass, we're moving on to the speed round. So
All
I'm
right.
going to give you a short question, and then you're going to give me a one-word answer.
Okay. We'll see if I'm good at this.
Favorite dive?
A gainer
Love it.
tune-up pike.
Wait, say it again.
A gainer tune-up pike. So it's not one word, but
Perfect. We'll put it in the chat. We'll put a video in the. We'll link it. Favorite sibling?
Kendall.
Shout out Kendall. Hi, Kendall. Biggest fear?
Alligators. Reptiles.
They are pretty scary. Hidden talent?
Bowling.
Ooh. We should set up some bowling at your wedding. That'd be sweet.
Oh, yes. That's a
We
good
can
idea.
we can have like Pat McFadden be the bowling ball. We'll like bowl into him. Spirit animal. Most used emoji.
Skull.
Ooh,
You're like-
I'm dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm dead. Dream travel destination.
Italy.
Honeymoon destination.
Fiji.
Favorite Philly restaurant.
Palaya. Or Pat and Gino's cheesesteaks.
So good. So good. Least favorite workout.
Cardio.
One word to describe Stanford diving.
Talented.
One word to describe the Olympics.
Unreal.
Favorite Olympic athlete.
Sarah Bacon.
Love that. Shout out Sarah. If you woke up tomorrow with a tattoo, what would it be? A new tattoo.
A dire wolf.
That's good. Favorite Game of Thrones character.
Ooh. Tormund.
Least favorite Game of Thrones character.
Cersei.
Which character would you want to play on Game of Thrones or be on Game of Thrones?
Arya.
Yeah, vibes. Rate the Game of Thrones regular season finale out of 10.
Like the 8th season finale.
Yep.
Oh, God. Like first half, 7. Second half, 2. Awful.
Yeah. Were you bummed what they did with Dany?
Yes, not because of the end result, but of how fast they got there. Like I thought that might have been the case. Like there were indications throughout the series and throughout the books that she might have gone mad, but the producers of that show were just trying to get it over with, and they did not pay that storyline tribute, or they did not give it what it should have been. It should have been a much longer process to get there. So no,
I agree.
but how they got there, yes. I'm most disappointed with what they did with John. Like, his parentage ended up not having any relevance. The fuck? Like, they were just like, oh yeah, Rhaegar is my dad, Lyanna is my mom. And then it just like, nothing ever came of it. They didn't even show us him telling his siblings, or I guess his cousins, nieces and nephews.
Cousins.
No, cousins, yeah.
Cousins, yeah.
They didn't even show us telling him on screen. Like, what the hell?
Ridiculous. Moving on. We could talk about this forever.
Sorry.
Kassidy Cook signature wedding cocktail.
Espresso martini and a Aperol spritz.
Love. 2028 Olympics.
Potentially.
What's next for Kassidy Cook?
Pickleball. I got a game tonight.
Let's go.
I'm in a pickleball
Let's
league
go.
now. Like, I gotta keep up that athletic, that athletic career.
Yeah. There
Taking
are
your
studies
talent
that show
elsewhere.
people who play paddle sports live longer.
I mean, it's so much fun.
It's so much fun.
I
It's so
really
much
have a
fun.
blast.
Cass, this has been amazing. Anything else before we wrap up that you want to tell the fans, the squad?
Not anything I can think of. I mean, Valar Morghulis, I guess.
Perfect. And where can people follow you and keep up with everything you're doing?
I'm old school. I just Instagram, Kassidy Cook 13. I do have a TikTok. I never post. I just like to go on there for entertainment and sourdough recipes. So
Perfect. Cassidy, thanks for coming on. This has been amazing, and good luck in the pickleball game tonight.
thank you. I'm going to bring back that W. Don't you worry.
Love it. Love it. Bye, Cass.
Bye, Conrad.